Hi, I'm Trevor Conquergood. Welcome to this week's R&K Software Club's video of the week. And the topic for this week is going to be about Cutwork. And we've looked at Cutwork for the last couple of weeks and just a few more tips and tricks that we'd like to share about Cutwork. And so today we're going to look at it, and just to go over it once again from the beginning, this is how you create a Cutwork design. And so here you got an example of a design that the Cutwork is obviously the area that's in between, sort of like the inside circle and the outside circle. The fabric has been removed. And so essentially when you stitch out said designs, the first color of the design is going to be, well, in this case, I did the monogram first. So monogram stitched. But after the monogram, it's going to sew a run stitch and the machine's going to stop. Now you would have hooped your machine together, your fabric together with wet and gone. So in your hoop together would be the fabric and the wet and gone. And at this stage, you would stop and use your scissors to trim the fabric along the inside run stitch and along the outside run stitch, and trim away the fabric through this area, but not trim away the wet and gone. So that's the trick, is to make sure that you only remove the fabric, leave the wet and gone in between the inner circle and the outer circle. Because I mean, if you don't, well, for goodness sakes, all the embroidery in the inside of the circle will essentially just fall outside of your hoop. And so it's because of the wet and gone that this center circle will stay in place while the machine keeps sewing. And so then the next thing that happens is it'll do a tack down. So it kind of goes around the outside of your Cutwork on the inside of your Cutwork, and it sort of secures your fabric just to make sure that it's, after you've trimmed it, that the wet and gone and the fabric are sort of secured together. And then it does the bridges, so whatever bridges you've drawn, and then it does the borders. And so that is essentially how to stitch a Cutwork design. And now how to make a Cutwork design. Let's just start a new empty workspace and kind of try and recreate this design of the ellipse, or so basically it can be any shape that you want, but I'll just start with a basic shape like a circle or an ellipse. And if you have kind of an elliptical shape like this and you want to create a Cutwork, now right now I only kind of have an outer boundary, and so if I click on the Cutwork tool, it's going to be kind of like you would trim the whole shape. So it's a Cutwork hole, and if you're done and that's all you want is little Cutwork holes, you can right click and be finished, and it will create the run stitches and the tack downs for your hole. But if you wanted to, and I'll just click on artwork to kind of reset that back to the beginning again. If you click on the Cutwork tool, you do have the ability to draw bridges, across your hole as well. So if you want to have sort of like bridges across the hole, the bridges are not allowed to cross the road. So if you cross the road, you'll find that it gets confused, basically, is what happens. Yeah, so you can sort those out and kind of make it understand what's going on again, but you can't cross the bridges is the one thing with the Cutwork tool. So the other thing is, if you want to have one like my ellipse had, so let's just make this back to artwork again, an inside and an outside, then you would need to have kind of like two boundaries, another shape, in other words. So I'll just click on copy to make another copy of that ellipse, and then make one of them kind of like bigger than the other one. And so here I have kind of like created a shape. This could be my Cutwork shape. If you want them all perfect and centered together, you can do that if you want. Select both shapes and use the alignment tool here under Align. Click to open that up, and you'll see that there's a line kind of to each other. And so see how that nicely centers everything. And then essentially now, yeah, if you click on these two shapes and click on Cutwork, they're not together yet. This could be one Cutwork shape and that could be one Cutwork shape, but if you want them to be where this is essentially one shape, you have to select both of these. So I'll just hold down the control key and click on sort of both of them in the sequence area, and then click on the combine tool. And by combining them together, it makes it one shape. And essentially, if I filled the artwork in, it would look like that. So you can see that this is now the area that becomes the whole of Cutwork. And so if I click on that Cutwork tool, it's waiting for me to put those bridges in, and you click and drag. And this is a step where a lot of times people ask me for tips. What do you do to make sure that the bridges are balanced? Or, personally, I try to go the shortest distance across the shape. So like there. And I try to avoid making, super long bridges like there, but, there's no kind of rules. I guess here's one rule. You're not allowed to cross them. I can't put one bridge going that way and then the other bridge coming this way. Essentially what happens is if you do that, and I'll just right click to finish, you'll see they kind of get confused. See what it did? It didn't try to cross the road. So if you want to, reorganize them, you can, take control of where they go, but you can't cross each other. So another thing, a tip, I guess, for getting them balanced. So let's just reset this back to artwork again. And in fact, I'm going to make a copy of it. And then the copy, so I should have two. Let's select this. Let's hit copy and paste. So I should have two of them. And the second one, I'm going to create a motif. Let's break it apart. Let's just have, I'll just say break apart. So we have essentially the outside and the inside, and I don't really need the inside one. I think just the outside one will do. And what I'm going to do is I'll take that outside shape, the copy of it that I made, and I'll turn it into a motif run line. And now it's kind of strategically choose a motif that makes it easy for me to find, kind of like a set point on the line, if you will. So something like this. And then adjust the size of the motif to be, probably bigger so that you can have a certain number of them around your shape. So what I've got now is my shape with like every so far there's a point. So watch what happens now. I take the original shape, and when I click on the Cutwork tool, it makes that, Cutwork border, and it waits for me to draw the bridges. And now essentially I'm just going to click and drag every time I find the center of one of those little motifs and just basically move it until it looks like it's the shortest distance across the gap. And so that is one way that you can, I guess, create bridges around a cutwork shape that are evenly spaced on kind of like by one edge, if you will. So that's, I guess, one quick little tip. I'm going to stop drawing them now, right click and just finish so that you can see what it's doing. Obviously I could have completed the whole circle. Now in this case, maybe you want to have a big fancy motif over top of your cutwork, but I was really thinking that that was just part of the artwork and I was going to delete them, so that they would just be a temporary thing. And temporary things can often be something interesting. As you know, we have a grid that you can turn on and off, and that can often help, especially if you take your actual shape and center it to your workspace so that it fits evenly on your grid, and therefore you can use that to help you align like the center of the horizontal and the vertical lines, and then get so many in between. And so that's another way that you can balance things. And perhaps one more trick that might be helpful, at times you can use the circle template. In other words, I'll literally just draw like a line like this and then select that line and copy it around a circle. So in this case you're going to probably need to rotate it. At least I do. In this line I drew it at 90, so I have to rotate it to make it kind of line up so that they point towards each other like this. And then, if you want them to have less space in the center, I guess you could make them bigger, so that'll give you less space in the center like that. And you can have as many of them as you want around your line. So like there's like 20 lines. So what did I create? I created a pinwheel, I guess, of lines. You could make them all one color, and if you had a shape that you were going to do cutwork for, you could put this underneath it or over top of it to help you, arrange your sort of cutwork lines in a circular pattern, if you will. So depending on what the shape's going to be, that might be another way to help you align. And maybe you've got some tips and tricks that you'd like to share with me on how you help align your things. I often use techniques that I probably don't always think to share. I know a lot of times I use the guidelines, and if you don't know, let me just hide the grid for a minute. A guideline is when you click on your ruler and drag to bring down a line. You can click on the ruler to bring in vertical and horizontal guidelines, and when you're done with them, you essentially click and drag to put them back on top of the rulers again, and they go away. And so, yeah, anyway, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I hope you're enjoying playing with all the cool tools of FTCU, especially the Cutwork tool. And until next week, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.